Hey, welcome back to the garden. Today's topic is being organic. What does it mean to be organic? What do I have to do? Why should I care? First, let's talk about why you should be concerned about it. If you want to start a garden to grow food security, or to gain food security, you want to be as organic as possible, because you're consuming that food back into our body. Now, a good example of this is this little pumpkin right here. If I can find it. There it is. That has 40 times more nutrients in it, or nutrient density, than what you would find at the store. Even though it's 94% water. Same thing with this lettuce. This has 40 times more amount of nutrients than the store, because I got so much, because I planted this so close together. I need to fertilize because I know that soil just cannot keep up with that demand. That's the whole idea about being organic, because you're consuming natural food in your body. Oh, why? But what else is there involved? Well, if you have children, your children are going to perform better academically by having access to this type of food versus this regular food that you're feeding them. When I say regular food, I mean like junk food. Bags of chips, candy bars, whatever. I say that as a person who has a background in nutrition. Now, okay, that's great, but how do I get organic? First rule of thumb is you create balance in the soil, which means you want plenty and plenty of the local fauna to take off in the soil. Which, if you ever looked at the soil, it is a safari down there. Tons and tons of life. And the most easiest direct route that you can do is compost. And you see I've laid an example down here, and it's what we call a mulch sign, and that's perfectly fine. Compost can be used that way. So not only did I save money not having to buy mulch, using what I already have on hand, this is going to act as a low-grade fertilizer for the plants. Now keep in mind, it's going to take 5 full years for that to take effect. So the grapevines aren't going to get the full effect until 5 years from now. That's the problem with being organic. It's slow. That's the reason why it's so expensive at the stores. But when you're looking at organic, everything to you starts becoming a resource. So it's a lot of upcycling, recycling. The other thing is, I've already alluded to it, is the chemicals. You're really not supposed to use any synthetic fertilizer, but there's going to be times when you must. For example, I had to fertilize the pumpkins because when I was expecting this many pumpkins to take, but they did, because they have so much nutrients being pulled out of the soil, and I know my soil needs to be topped off. That's becoming an issue, so I fertilized. You just do not want to go excessively. Because if you really want to boil it down to brass tacks, the nutrient from the synthetic fertilizer versus the natural is the exact same thing. The plant's not going to care. But do so responsibly. You don't want to over fertilize. Then you have what we call the leaching of the soil, because when you use the synthetic fertilizer, it's water based, it's water soluble. It washes in the soil can't keep the nutrients there, so it washes out and ends up in a local stream. Because it's mainly nitrogen based, it creates what we call a algae bloom. And the city of Tulsa is really particular about their streams out here. So do so responsibly. You don't need to lay it in its dick. Only fertilize using man-made materials if you have to. Synthetic fertilizer is what we call it. Next topic is pesticides. You do not want to use any pesticides at all. Reason being is pesticides do not discriminate. If I spray pesticides out here, guess who's going to get hit the hardest? These little guys. There's one that's had some pollen on it. So I cannot spray any pesticides. I can't even fumigate for mosquitoes because they get hit. The bees will get hit and infected. So I have to use natural controls. For example, I have a beetle problem with the pumpkins, two-toed beetles. I know certain birds will eat the beetles, so I track the birds out here. They get their free food. They get food out here. I get free pest control. Doesn't cost me a dime. With that being said, let's talk about the economic inputs. Well, since I'm making my own fertilizer, I don't have to buy as much mulch, and you can see I have a lot of beds out here that need mulch, that need to be mulched. I just don't make enough compost, so I have to go in stages. Apologize about the saw, they're doing some remodeling next door. But because of that, when I cut the grass, that grass goes into the compost bin because they're treated as a resource instead of a waste material. The junk pieces of meal that I know that's compostable goes in the composting bin. My food scraps that I know is compostable goes into my food bin or my worm bin. That's creating soil for me. This is my #1 expense. The other thing that it does is it reduces the amount of soil that I need to buy, because I'm now making my own soil, making my own mulch. That is a big expense, and if you want to tie that in, now I don't have to go to the closest big box store to buy dirt, compost, or whatever. And that's also saving me in my gas prices. And out here, gas is getting a little more expensive. So that's reducing wear and tear on my car. So that's a wonderful thing. Don't worry, if you start a garden, you're naturally going to gravitate to this. But I'm not trying to discourage you from using the chemicals. I'm just trying to advocate for proper use. Now on the flip side, I do have fertilizer in the shed, which would be silly of me not to show you. Like you see, I do have fertilizer because there's empty times where I need it. But now's the time to buy your fertilizer because they start marking it down. For example, like this is for my fruit trees. I actually will use that for my other fruit plants. But you see how much I paid for it? 28 cents. That's a good size discount. Now's the good time to buy the fertilizer and hand tools that you need. Because it's starting to get marked down or starting to move out for the Christmas season. And let's face it, you're not going to be using a hand tool unless you have to in the winter. So again, being a organic gardener is this a natural process. You start gardening, you're naturally going to lean that way because you start thinking about dollars. How can this save me money? And this is what I started the channel for, is to show ways that it doesn't have to be expensive. A garden's not expensive. Like everything else, you have expenses front loaded. By the time you get to year 10 or so, that expense drops down to this pennies a day. But thanks for joining me. Feel free to like, sub, share, send me some ideas, comment, etc., etc. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye.